Okay, hey everybody. Today I'll be talking about how I got into fashion and commercial photography. That is to say, take it with a grain of salt because I haven't become this great, really successful photographer within that industry. But that said, I have worked in it for over 10 years and I came to a point where I have worked with very successful people. I've been on very big sets, international productions, so I do feel like I do have a little bit of an insight within the industry. And if you are a student or someone that is looking to get into it, this video might help. How it all started was I had a full scholarship to go to New York Film Academy, and before that, I still want to be like a writer, so that was like my main like goal. But moving to New York was always like one of my big plans. So I jumped on this opportunity to study like photography, and photography is something I've always been doing since I was a little kid. So I went to school, I graduated. I knew I wanted to kind of work in fashion because I kind of got like fascinated with the studio environment and even like magazine editorials and stuff like that. So I applied for all the studios in New York. I made a huge fucking Google list. I listed all the top studios I wanted to work at, and then like the smaller studios. And by that I mean like I want to work as like an assistant or in the equipment room or whatever, like anything I can get, anything that I can get my like foot into, right? If you know like New York studios, like Pier 59 and Spring, later on like Spring came in, they're the top three biggest studios. There's other ones too, but in my opinion they're the biggest. Yeah, funny enough, like I got a job like with Pier 59 like right away. So I'm pretty old school with my approaches. I printed out my resume and I just went to the studios. I just asked to speak to the manager and I just told them, I was like, hey, I just graduated photography school. I want to like work. I want to work with the best. Man, you know, managers love that shit when you show initiative. So I got hired like right away, like right after school. Pier 59, the equipment room, like they hired me right away. I was working night shifts there, like in like fucking brutal hours, a lot of overtime, like overtime every fucking night. But it was good money because at that point I didn't have anything. I only had my camera. I had my room in Washington Heights, but I didn't have a computer, first of all, so I couldn't really edit anything. So I had to go to some like school and use their editing lab whenever I had like something to edit. So the money was good, and just the sheer fact of being at Pier 59 right after graduation was like mind-blowing for me, because the stuff that you learn in school, they don't really like teach you what the industry is actually like, because most of the time a lot of these like instructors, they never worked in this kind of scale ever. You know, I'm not like bashing like instructors in like photography school or anything. They have a lot of knowledge to share, but they really don't have industry knowledge, if that makes sense. So when I was actually at Pier 59, I was like blown away because this studio is fucking massive. Pier 59, they're like known to do like all the biggest campaigns, right? Like they even host like New York Fashion Week. When I was there, Queen Latifah was there, Jay-Z, Kanye West, Beyonce, Rihanna was there. I just met like so many celebrities, like just like doing their like music video shoot or like a magazine shoot or like a campaign they were working on. So one of the rules there was that you can't solicit producers. That was like the main rule, because they knew like students after they graduate would like get a job at one of these big studios, and they knew we wanted to get on set, but I was an equipment room guy. So like I think for the first months, like the first few weeks, for the first 2 weeks, I just kept my head down and I just like learned the system. I was learning about equipment from the guys. Like I was able to go into the studios and like look at the light schemes, but I never really like talked to any of the studio. I mean the producers or like the talent or anyone, because you know you were told not to. So after the first 2 weeks, I got my first paycheck from them, and I bought a computer. Now that I have a computer, now I'm like, oh shit, now I can edit my own stuff at home. I don't need to go to school anymore. So now that also kind of sparked in my head. I'm like, okay, man, I'm ready for the next move. And this studio shit, you know, it's giving me a little bit of money, but it's not what I want to do. I want to be on set. I need to learn on set. I can't be in the equipment room. So what Pier 59 has is like they have their own like restaurant, bar, like cafe area. If you work there, you walk by there all the time, and that's where like all these like producers are on like phone calls. And every time I walk by and I'm carrying equipment, I always have my eye on it. I'm like, shit, I want to go talk to that producer. I want to be hired as an assistant there on one of their sets. And One day it was a Korean guy. I'm Korean, by the way, so it was a Korean guy. And he was on the phone and he was speaking Korean. Like I knew that was a chance because Koreans kind of look after each other. That's like a thing. I was delivering equipment to one of the studios, and as soon as I was going back to the equipment room, I just ran up to him and I said, "Hey man, I don't have much time because I might get caught by my supervisor and we're not supposed to do this. But I just graduated like school." It's pretty much the same thing I said like to Pier 59 when I was trying to get hired by them, right? So I just gave him my fucking thing, like just told him the truth. I was like, "Hey, I just literally graduated like 2-3 weeks ago. I'm working here, but this is not what I want to do. I'm hungry, man. Like I'm trying to like get on set, on the biggest sets. I want to like work." The guy's like, "Hey, I understand what you're doing. I respect it. Here's my card. Give me an email tonight." So I was like, "Shit." So like I fucking like went. I worked. I went home. I sent the guy an email. And funny enough, the guy's like, "I have a shoot this coming week. Are you able to come like as like a third or like fourth assistant? Maybe like even the fifth assistant." Basically, I'm not doing much on set. And it was with Dan Jackson, who's a big commercial photographer from London. Yeah, so the producer like basically called me to be like to work on his set, and I'm like, "Fuck yeah, dude, I'm ready." The shoot was at Pier 59, right? Which is where I worked as a equipment assistant, and which they did tell me that I'm not allowed to go talk to like producers and whatever, or I'm gonna get fired. So I go to fucking, I'm like, "Fuck it though, like, you know, I gotta go do this." I show up to the studio, and as soon as I show up, like I showed up like 6 a.m. in the morning or something, like 7 a.m. I can't remember, like pretty early, because I wanted to be there, and I wanted to be there before the producers and to show them that I'm here to work. When I showed up, all the equipment guys are already there, right? And they're like, "Hey, David, you're not supposed to work today." And I'm like, "Oh no, I'm not working. I have a gig in this studio." I can't remember which studio. It's like Studio One or something. I have a gig here, and they're like, "What the fuck, really?" And they're all kind of like eyeing me. They're like, "Oh, this motherfucker, like, you know, he's only been here for like 3 weeks or something, and he's scheming." And I'm like, "Yeah, motherfucker, I'm scheming." So like I go into this fucking studio, the producers come, like, and the producers like, "Hey, you know how to like use cameras, right? You went to like photography school and shit." Yeah, so I'm like, "Yeah, I know how to use the camera. Yeah, I can do like whatever. What do you need?" And they're like, "Yeah, can you do behind the scenes? Take videos and like photos." And they gave me like a Canon 1DX. It's like the Canon like flagship. So I've used all the flagships before, but I never used the Canon flagship. So at that point, I was like, "Holy fuck!" And I was actually really nervous on set. Like it was like a huge set. I have this digital camera, like a flagship, like professional, like the most expensive Canon like digital camera you can use, and they're asking me to do like shoot video with it. The producer's like looking at me, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, no, no, I know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to," and I'm trying to figure out how to like put it to video mode, and like I'm like, "Oh, don't worry, I got it." And then I'm walking around the studio like acting like I have like I'm like shooting and like whatever, but really I'm on my fucking phone like googling how to like use it. That was like the morning. Oh yeah, and also like I'm meeting like Dan Jackson. He's a nice guy, but on set he's like, if things aren't the way it is, it's understandable. He'll like yell at you and like whatever, and he was just yelling at everybody. And it was my first day, and I was like, "Oh my god, what the fuck is going on? Like this guy has like he has problems or whatever." But it was also my first day in like a commercial shoot, so I had no idea. And there was one, the Digitech was actually really nice. He knew I was new, so he was just showing me the ropes. He was telling me all the rules. And he's like, "Don't sit down. This is your first day. Don't ever sit down. Always stand. And always try to be helpful." It's kind of like being in the kitchen. There's always something to do. But anyways, my job was pretty easy. Like it's like, "Hey, just take behind the scenes." So I'm like, "All right, cool." I go to the makeup station. Like the model is like sitting there, and I'm assuming this is the model because she kind of looked like a model. She had like pale face and like, you know, whatever. So I go up to her and I was like, "Hey, are you the model?" And like everyone there, like all the makeup artists, the hairstylists are like all like laughing at me because it was Sasha Pivovarova, and at that point she was like the biggest model like in the industry. And then like the makeup artist was like, "How do you work in fashion and not know who she is?" And I was like, "Oh, let me Google this real quick." So I guess one of the things is that you should always have your phone ready to Google. Another thing that the Digitech told me was like, don't go talk to the talent. Don't like talk to like all these like people that you don't know yet, because you're a newbie. just play your part and the time will come. But me, I'm a really chatty dude, so even on set while Dan was like shooting, so I'm like on the side like taking like video of them like working, and I kept on like talking to Sasha. I think Sasha thought it was really funny too, and she kept on talking back, and like we were like chatting. Dan like worked with Sasha before, so Dan's also talking with Sasha. And I just kind of jumped in, and then I was like, "Oh, Dad, you're from like London, hey? Like which football club do you like?" And like I'm just like trying to like talk, and I could tell at that point when the shoot was actually happening, and I was just being a really chatty person. All the other assistants like just eyed me like crazy. They were all just like glaring at me, and even the Digitech at that point, he was really nice to me in the morning and just teaching me all the rules and like how to behave, which. I should have respected that, like, to a certain extent. I should have just, like, shut up. Yeah, they were all, like, just fucking glaring at me. Yeah, and the Digitech was also not being, like, very nice to me after that. And even the second assistant, the station dude, he was just, like, he was also nice to me in the morning, but he wasn't, after that, like, during lunch, like, he wasn't nice to me at all. And funny enough, like, I thought the shoot was going really well, because I thought me being chatty was like a good thing. I thought the mood of the set was very like kind of shitty mood, because in the morning at least there was a lot of like yelling from like Dan was yelling at all the assistants because certain things about the set wasn't like to his liking. When he sat down to shoot, the camera wasn't set up properly and stuff, so he was just yelling at people. And for me, I thought I was just bringing the mood up. So for me, like talking to like Sasha on shoot, even me talking to Dan about like football while he was shooting, I thought I was just doing everyone a favor. But clearly, it was not like the correct etiquette. So to follow up on what happened afterwards, I never got a call back from them, but I do have like the experience of working with Dan Jackson, which in the future is kind of funny. When I moved to like London, and I actually met one of his assistants there as well, which is kind of another like funny coincidence. And even with the Korean producer, he never hired me again. Yeah, and that's why like you should really know the etiquettes of how to behave, especially if you're completely new. Like going up to the talent and asking who she is, talking to everybody when you're specifically told not to, talking to the talent while the photographer is shooting, all like, just like red flags all over the place. So I remember after the shoot, the Korean producer was really aggressive with me. He was just like, "Hey, look, I'm gonna pay you, but you're not gonna get hired like with me again. Like, this is not how you do it." And I was like, I was just like I was like lost. I was like, what? Why? What did I do? And it's what it is, right? But you know what? I got paid 500 USD that day, and I did like nothing. And that's when I realized, wow, I have to be on set. I was like 4/5 assistant on that set, and I got paid $500, and I was like, man, I gotta get on set. After that shoot, I had to work on this at the studio, so I'm working at the equipment room. But at that point, like my manager, everybody knew that like I kind of went behind the company's back, and I got this like assistant job. Yeah, so like with Pier 59, I knew it wasn't gonna last. And at least at that point, they had like a policy that if you were late once, you're fired, right? And they booked me in to like an early morning shift, and I've worked like crazy hours like the whole fucking week, right? Like full time. I can't remember. I was like literally like a minute or two like late, and they like fired me on spot. It was fucking nuts. And I'm just like standing there like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm like maybe like 2 minutes late, and they're like, no, you're gone, man. And I was like, okay, this is definitely because of the whole thing where I worked on set with that producer and shit. But yeah, so I mean, I lasted like a month at Pier 59, which to this day I still put it on my resume that I worked at Pier 59, everybody. But yeah, I did work at Pier 59 for a month. I did use my time there to solicit a Korean producer, and I landed a commercial job, my first commercial job there. So again, like I'm pretty like crafty with like planning things out. So as soon as I like got fired from Pier 59, I Googled all these just like fashion photographers in New York City, which is probably the most in the world. I just started like emailing all of these guys, like, hey, I want to work, I want to be your assistant. And then I also like emailed all these like agencies looking to be an assistant on set, which is really easy to do. Like if you guys are in New York, that's probably the best thing to do. Like just email an agency and be like, hey, like I just graduated, or like I'm new to the industry, I want to assist, I want to learn. These agents will just like contact you right back. They're like, oh yeah, we'll put you on file. Next shoot, like please come by, whatever, and like this will be the rate, or maybe you won't get paid the first few times, but it's just the best way to like start. So I started doing that. I got a few gigs. And then again, like with the whole thing where like Korean people help each other out thing. And then I was like, hey, I'm gonna Google search Korean photographers in New York, right? So I actually sat down with a bunch of people. And here's another tip, right? The best way to get a person's attention, like especially an artist, is to ask for a portfolio review and ask for a coffee and a portfolio review. At least in my experience, like they love that shit, and they'd be down to like come talk to you and sit down with you. That was another like way of like getting my foot on the door and just like getting fucking random jobs. Even if I don't get called again, at least I've worked for that like a gig or two. And then now I was scheming to get like I wanted to move up with a photographer to be like their first assistant, because I was getting all these like one-off jobs and I was always like the second or the third. And it's only when they need a second or third as well, right? So I wanted to be a first. So I Google Korean fashion photographers in New York, and a bunch of these fucking people come up. I email all these guys. And then that's how I met Damien. Damien just straight up like invited me to his set, like in the morning. So like I just like showed up to his set. In the morning, I just kind of like, I showed up on set, and I think maybe he was even using me too, but it goes both ways, right? He's like, hey, so you're on set, do you mind helping me out? And I'm like, man, no problem, dude, because that's exactly what I came for anyway. So I set up his studio for him, and he knew right away that I was fucking good at it. Like, I knew all the equipment because I worked at the equipment room in Pier 59. I knew all the light schemes through like just like school, and even just like by watching people's like sets at the studio in Pier 59. Or my previous sets that I've worked on. So he knew right away that I was really good at what I did. And then I just kind of sat around and he was just shooting. And then during lunch, he's like, hey, let's do your portfolio review. So I showed him my shit and he just like, oh, cool. And then we're just like kind of talking. And then it comes out like, he's from the same neighborhood as me in Korea. So, and then we kind of bonded, and he was just like, hey man, you want to be my assistant? And I was like, fuck yeah. And at that point, he already had like 2 other assistants or whatever. Yeah, and eventually like I worked my way up and I became his first assistant. But yeah, this is how I like got started. The reason why I bring Damien is because he eventually became my mentor. That's something that's super important in the industry. Well, after I graduated, I didn't really have any mentors. Like I did have like photographer mentors, but I didn't have mentors in the industry that knew the industry very well. And working at Pier 59 and then going on set to assist for the first time on a big set, not knowing what to do. This is all because like chaotic behavior, because I did not have any guidance. And then even like when I got like gigs through agencies, like I really didn't know any of the etiquettes or how I should have behaved or whatever. I was just like a cocky kid coming out of like school thinking I knew what to do. But with Damien, he became my mentor. Like after every shoot, he would sit down with me and he would just teach me why he would shoot certain ways. He would invite me to like production meetings, client meetings. Like I learned so much how to become a photographer, like a working photographer. So for that, like I'm forever grateful to Damien. And he also gave me a lot of like gigs, like certain magazines like that he did not want to shoot for anymore, but they still inquired him. Like he will pass it along to me. And also like even with like model agencies and like stylists and stuff like that, he will be the person to recommend me to them. Because he knew I was hungry. He knew I just wanted to like shoot my own stuff. He knew like, yeah, I'm assisting, I'm on set and I'm learning, but eventually I want to do my own thing. And he always kind of like, he was very open about it. Yeah, and then he really helped me out to get my own stuff. Eventually I became my commercial photographer. But this is how it all kind of like started. And I hope you guys found it somewhat interesting and insightful, because I do get questions from like students, and even when I was like managing studios, most of the time you get like photography graduates and they don't have any guidance, because it's like once you graduate, you're just kind of there on your own. Like you have to figure out the industry on your own, unless you have connections within the industry, right? You have the network to like help you out. For a person like me, like I didn't really know the industry at all. I just kind of like jumped into it like head first. I think definitely these are like the lessons that I've learned at least. I guess at the end of the day, to summarize this whole like story, there's two ways I would recommend to get into the industry. First one is to work at a really big studio. Don't work for a small like boutique studio. Aim big and go for a commercial studio, because that's where you see like maybe not the best people, but just commercially most successful people working with other commercially successful people. Just being there and seeing everything, what kind of light schemes they use, how they deal with their clients, how they deal with the talent. It's very, very insightful. It's the most insightful thing. Like it's like class on it's its own class, right? And by working for the studio, there's no real risk because you're working for the studio. You're not actually working on set yet. So you can kind of be like a fly on the wall, and you can kind of just like watch people work. And I think like maybe a month to like, I don't know, however long, just like work at a studio. And then route two is reach out to agencies and like tell them that you want to like work. Ask them if they need help assisting or whatever, and try to get hired as an assistant. It doesn't really matter if you're like the third assistant or whatever. And just follow the rules. Don't be like me. Don't be a fucking chatty dude. Just fucking go out there and shut your mouth and just like work. Do whatever they ask you to do. I think I should probably do another like video on like how to be a good assistant, because there's definitely a learning curve. It's not the hardest job, but it's a very attentive job. If you want to be a first assistant, there's definitely some requirements. You have to be a dependable and very responsible person, and you have to see things the way your photographer sees his sets or his like what his vision may be. And that's something that I've learned with like Damien. The more I learned like worked with him, I knew exactly what he wants. Like even when before like we're driving to the set together, like I just talk to him about like, hey, how are you shooting this? And I just ask him questions, and then right away I know how to like do it, how to like set up the studio for him. Yeah, I'll do another video on like how to be a good assistant, but I think this is a very good summary of how to get your foot on the door. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Ask me questions. Oh, and also for the videos, the back, these are like the behind the scenes like videos I took. Some of them are like my own, some of them are for like my friends. So this one right here is my good friend Paulo Testa. There was another one that was black and white with Sasha Pivovarova. Yeah, that was the shoot that I shot the BTS for Dan Jackson, and the one that I got in trouble with, and then I never got hired again. But yeah, that's what it is. All right, thanks guys. Take care.